So good
Okay.
morning. This morning I am really excited to end the week on another high, talking to somebody that I feel like I've really got to know through social media. And I think places like Twitter can often get quite a kind of bashing for being quite a destructive place, but actually I found some really positive influences on my life and in really inspiring women. And so I'm delighted to be joined by Siobhan Daniels this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. It's lovely to finally see your face and to actually talk to you. I've spoken to you so much over Twitter. I feel like I know you.
I know, likewise, and I can't wait to find out everything that you are up to. I think it's fantastic. For anybody that doesn't know your background, last year you retired at 60. What were you doing before you retired, Siobhan?
Yay! I was working for the BBC. I worked for BBC Radio for 10 years and I presented programmes and reported and produced. And then I moved to television in BBC South East Today in Tunbridge Wells. And I worked there for 20 years reporting and producing news.
Right.
And then I finally retired. Yay!
Now, did you retire? Were you looking forward to retiring, or were you approaching it with a bit of trepidation of thinking, what we're going to do?
A bit of both, to be honest. I was really looking forward to actually retiring because I'd been talking about doing what I'm doing now for so long, travelling around Great Britain in my motorhome, but also going through the menopause. I had a really hard time. I had a really hard time in the newsroom with people understanding the menopause and with me understanding what was happening to my mind and my body. Because when you're working in news, you really do have to be on the ball. And when I started feeling anxious and remember things, and I honestly started thinking, am I getting Alzheimer's? Because I just was so on the ball before, and then I lost a grip. And of course, my bosses started questioning my capability of doing the job at times. So all that, the combination of witnessing a lot of ageism with younger reporters and younger people I spoke to when we'd have news meetings, we'd be sitting there and they'd talk about pensioners and retirees and over 50s, and I'm sitting there sort of approaching 60 going, excuse me, I'm nearly 60, I don't, you're not representing me and a lot of my friends. So I just got it in my head that I needed to get out there and spread the word. And it's really strange because I'm doing it at a time when so many women actually are doing it. And I've connected with so many fabulous women on social media during lockdown. So that's basically why I did it, and I retired, and I just want to challenge ageism.
Yeah, fantastic. And you're so right. The social media and the media in general and advertising portray particularly women in retirement in just such a different way to really somebody who I imagine to be in their 80s. They portray in their 50s and 60s, and it's really damaging, isn't it?
It is, and I don't think they really appreciate how damaging it is. And I have to admit, I was in the newsroom putting together reports, and anything to do with elderly and old, even as passionately as I felt, you would go for just anonymous shots, and you did go for the feet shots and the hand shots and everything, because we had this belief that, if it was an elderly person, they may have passed away, and we didn't want to cause distress to relatives or whatever if they saw images of their loved ones. So that was the sort of thought process behind it. But we've moved on so much more since then, and so many women like you and me are willing to let our images be used to represent women of our age. So they should pick up on that a bit quicker than they are doing, I think.
So you said that you'd had this idea for a while. Where had this kind of desire to go off travelling around UK on your own? How long have you had that idea in your head?
I think I've always been a bit of a gypsy in my head. I love traveling. Before I was a journalist, I was a nurse for 9 years. And when I was nursing, I used to do different courses and then take 3 months off and travel around India and Nepal and Israel and places. And then I had my daughter, who's 31, Sammy. So I stopped all the travel and sort of concentrated on being a grown-up and a single mum and working hard. But it was always in my mind. So when my daughter went to university, I took a gap year from the BBC and packed a rucksack and went around the world on my own,
wow.
Travelling. And it was then And oh, it was brilliant. I loved it. And I met so many people of different ages. I just felt ageless and fearless. And I did lots of talks when I came back going, ageless, fearless, you can do it too.
Yeah.
And I did parachute jumps and all sorts of things out there. But during that time, I got the idea of, when I retire, I need this kind of freedom. And then I thought, and then I became more disillusioned with people working hard to go out and buy stuff that they didn't really need, and it meant that they had to pay for all this stuff and they couldn't spend time with family and friends. And I just was realizing the importance of my family and friends, and I didn't want all this stuff. And I thought, all this together, I can get rid of my stuff, buy a motorhome, go traveling, meet amazing people, and also spread my word of sort of challenging ageism and images of what older people can do. So that's where it came from. And I kept talking to people in the newsroom about it. And as it came up to my retirement, they kept going, "You're really going to do this, aren't you?"
I think it's
I was going, "Yay!"
I just think it's fantastic doing it. I was going to ask you about that. What did your friends and family think?
Oh, they know I'm crazy and they think I'm crazy, but they do like the idea of what I'm doing. And I've got loads of people who are sort of queuing up and saying, if I drive to the nearest train station, they'll get a train up and then they can spend a couple of days with me. I've already done it with a few people, two of my closest girlfriends. I went to the Yorkshire Dales and we had a fab time, and we went up to the Lake District and we did a girls' trip. We've been friends since we were 18. And then I dropped them off at the station, and then they went home again. So a lot of my family and friends are going to do that. And on the 4th, when the lockdown finishes, my brother and his wife, they've booked in the slot next to me, and my sister-in-law's booked in with her motorhome the slot the other side. My other sister and her husband are in a tent. My daughter and her boyfriend's in a tent. And my brother's son and his partner are going to be in a tent. So we're all getting together as a family, because sadly my niece died in March, and she was only 33, and we haven't been together since then. So it's nice that we can all get together and just hang out. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, that'll be such a special weekend. When you set off, you set off in September. So I guess by the time lockdown had come, you were well into your routine, weren't you, and traveling around and having that freedom. So what happened when lockdown happened? How did that make you feel?
To be honest, I felt really scared. I felt really anxious, because there was a lot of negativity about motorhomes and campsites, and I'm actually sort of, this is my home for whilst I'm traveling, and I didn't know where to go. And luckily I'd come to this site at the beginning of January before I went up to Scotland, and I got to know the owner, and my sister lives just a couple of miles up the road. So I headed back here when everybody was saying within the next few days it's likely there's going to be lockdown. And he was great, and he said to me, look, you can stay as long as you like, you can't come and go, but once you're here you can stay. But then the neighbours weren't happy that there were motorhomes on here, so they phoned the police. So the police actually came knocking on the motorhome door, and I was thinking, what if I get chucked off? Where do I go? What do I do? So for the first couple of weeks, I felt overwhelmingly anxious, and I felt rudderless. You know, my plan and everything I was doing, it was coming together, and magazines and people were contacting me and wanting to do features about me. I'll put a little plug. I'm in Simply You next week, and I'm in Platinum magazine.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, Platinum's in I think it's the September issue I'm going to be in.
Brilliant.
But things, you know, and I was building momentum and people connecting with me, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and I felt really hard. And then I was so lucky, there's a couple that had come all the way from New Zealand and bought a motorhome and were going to be be my neighbours. So they I've been able to connect with them, and they've been a tremendous support to me. I couldn't have done without Helen and Steve. They've been brilliant.
So I was going to ask you, have you felt lonely during this whole process of traveling on your own, or have you always just made, you know, new connections with people?
I think I'm really fortunate. I'm the kind of person, I don't feel lonely. Very, very rarely I feel lonely. And usually I don't think it's loneliness, it's a sadness. When my mum died last year, I felt a kind of, I think, what is loneliness, but I don't feel, I love my own company. I do. And I go and seek out people. And I've been so lucky that Helen and Steve are the kind of people that have got the same sarcastic sense of humour as me. And I bought a little fire pit, and I've been lighting little fires so we can sit, obviously at safe distances. And I came out my motorhome one day, and Steve was playing Prodigy's Fire Starter on his music system. And they just take the mickey out of me, but they're there as a support as well. And also Roger, who owns the place, him and his wife and his children, they sort of, there's masses of land, and they come down again at a distance and chat with us, and we'll all have a bottle of wine. So it's been nice. And my sister, she at the very beginning used to buy me food parcels and leave them at the barrier. Now she can come in and sit at a distance. But she used to say she was doing Meals on Wheels for the elderly.
So where are you heading next? So now the lockdown's starting to lift, where are you planning to go next?
Well, funnily enough, my anxiety is sort of raising its ugly head again a little bit, because I'm not sure how people are going to perceive motorhomes and people travelling around at the moment, because a lot of places, Devon and Cornwall, are saying we don't want tourists at the moment, we don't want, in Scotland, we don't want you bringing it in. So being on my own, I want to sort of be sensible, and so I'm going to stay here a couple of weeks after lockdown finishes and just see what's happening, see how people are behaving, you know, and check it out. But then I've got to get my motorhome service, because it'll be a year then that I've been on the road. So I need to go to Oxfordshire, get it serviced and all the checks done. And then I want to head down to Kent to catch up with lots of my friends, and then head to Devon and Cornwall.
I guess the beauty of this is you don't have a time scale anymore, do you?
No. I said at the beginning, my plan is to have no plan. And I was in a relationship when I started off doing this, and my partner, he couldn't get his head around it. He used to say, people were asking him where I was, and he used to say, I don't blooming know where you are. And he sort of wanted me to have a plan. He wanted me to tell him what I was doing next. And I used to say, my plan is to have no plan. I lie in bed and I look at maps and I think, oh, where haven't I been? Where do I fancy going? Google campsites near so-and-so. And that's what I did when I went up to Scotland. And I loved Scotland. I can't wait to go back up there again.
I think it's just that freedom, isn't it? The fact that you could just choose exactly what you want, and you don't need anybody else to run it past. You can just come and go as you please, which must be so liberating.
It is liberating. I mean, obviously it would be lovely to do this with somebody else, and to you know, I'm not saying I want to be on my own forever. It would be lovely to have somebody else to do it with and experience some of the views and the sunsets and sunrises that I've seen. I mean, I'm that crazy woman in my gym jams running around fields and campsites when the sun's rising. I just love it. I see all the mist and everything in the morning, and I just think I'm so lucky I can do this. And it doesn't matter if people think I'm crazy, but I'm loving what I'm doing. I really am.
Oh, I think it's.
I would anybody to do it.
Yeah, my husband said, don't get any ideas.
No, Rachel, you must join me for a couple of days at some stage, though. We really must.
Yeah, I really, really would love to. I think it's fantastic.
And we'll film it as we do it. Sorry, what was that?
What have you learned about yourself along the way? Have you learned anything?
Yes, I've learned a lot. I've learned actually I'm not quite as strong as I thought I was emotionally. And I think lockdown has taught me that. I do feel that anxiety. I thought I was kind of ageless, fearless, so I felt that. But also on the flip side, I felt I can overcome a lot of things, and I am a strong woman, and I hope I'm an inspirational woman to other women to go out there and try and have adventures, and not to be where society seems to think we should be at 60. Put yourself where you want to be. Don't be where society wants to put you. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I want to sort of inspire women and give women the opportunity, you know, if they want to meet up with me and do a couple of days, have an experience, you know, I'm willing to do that. I'd love to do that and meet new women. So I hope I've inspired people, and
Oh,
the
yeah, I think it's,
people I connect with on social media seem to they motivate me as well, which is what I like.
I think it's like you say, it's breaking down those barriers. After you finish your tour, how do you plan to kind of get that message out there? Are you going to start doing talks? Are you going to write a book? Have you had thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would love to go into schools
Mhm.
and talk about ageism.
Yeah.
I think it's so important, because just when they go into the workplace, because ageism is any age people can be ageist against you. And so, you know, young girls going into the workplace, the way that they're perceived by the elder workers, and I just feel there's a lot to be discussed when they're in the sixth form age. So I'd like to go to women's institutes and talk to people, but that's what I'd like to do, is just go out and spread the message of being an adventurer, talk about my gap year when I went traveling around the world, and running my marathons and climbing Mount Melange and different things that I've done, and then this trip, but also write a book
Yeah.
about it.
I'd buy it. Well, you've had a fascinating life.
It's finding publishers, it's finding people, you know, agents and things. I don't know how to go around that thing, but all I'm doing is documenting what I'm doing, how I'm doing, and then I'm going to have to concentrate on pitching it to people.
Yeah. I think actually
I want people to read.
I think social media is another good thing for that though, Siobhan, because if you put it out there and say, listen, this is what I've done, this is what I'm writing, does anybody have any contacts to publishers? Chances are somebody in your social media network could be able to give you some good tips as well.
That's true, but I still think it's funny because I'm out there and in your face, I think, with a lot of things that I do, but I'm a bit embarrassed or nervous to sort of ask for help on things like social media. I definitely need help with my social media presence on things like Instagram and posting things and how I post. I'm sure I go the long way around it, and I'm not sure how to put links in and do things. And I'm not in a position to go on a course at the moment, you know, with moving around. So if there's anybody out there that wants to help me with that, I'd be grateful. And they can come and stay for a weekend free.
You're on. So what's the plans for the rest of the day then?
The plans that my sister hopefully is going to pop down, but it's started raining, the heavens have opened, and we've got 3 more days, I think, of solid rain. We've had glorious sunshine.
Yeah.
So hopefully my sister and her daughter and the little nephew, they're going to come because he wants to see the box that I live in. He's 4. So he
Oh,
said, you live in a box with a bed.
because I know
So they're going,
you've done a lot of cycling as well, haven't you?
oh, do you know what? I bought this e-bike thinking I'll just use it to tootle about. And it's the best thing I would say to anybody. Don't bother with other bikes, get an e-bike, because I've been traveling hundreds of miles. I've explored all this area, and round Lancaster is beautiful. I used to just head straight up to the Lake District and think, oh, I'm not sure Lancaster's anything. I have been in every nook and cranny, and the rivers and the castle, and it's so beautiful on my bicycle. And when you get tired and there's a big hill, you just crank up the battery and you're up the top. And I'm off again. So yes, I'll probably go out on my bike a bit later. Even though it's raining, I've got waterproofs.
Yeah.
So I'll probably go for a little cycle. But I'm loving that. I love the e-bike.
Brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you this morning, and I'm so excited for everything that you're doing. I think it's brilliant, and we need more women like you in the press, and I hope you get as much coverage as you can, because I think you are so inspiring.
Oh, Rachel, that's so kind of you. And I've loved talking to you. And I'm inspired by you as well. I love all your modelling and all the things that you portray. So I think women like us, we need to get that message out there that there's life after 60, life after 50, life after 70.
Definitely. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in the future and meeting up with you properly. And
oh, definitely.
Safe travels, and I'll be watching, seeing what you're up to.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.